we always start with our cats, and the cats will never change. We always have our 2 copies of each, and the thought process around these is always the same. You want to have access to street, protection from targeting on the turn that they're summoned, and the Purrely spells discard to summon from deck. So my logic is I don't like to normal summon these unless I really have to, and preference special summoning them from deck just to insulate any sort of effect bailers or imperms and stuff like that. So there's my thought process on that one. We then move into 3 copies of street. If I had the wiggle room and the space, I would love to include a copy of terraforming. So spoiler alert, there is no terraforming. If you would like to run at 41 cards, you can definitely include the terraforming. I like to keep it as close to 40 as possible for the sake of consistency. But I think it's personal preference. Terraforming can be Ashe, it also plays into Droll. So keeping that in mind when you're deck building is probably very important as well, based on what you're going to be playing against, if it's locals, a YCS, a World Championship qualifiers, whatever. So 3 copies of street, no terraforming, because I want to avoid playing into Droll, because Droll is like in every deck at the moment. We then have 3 copies of my friend. Always activating this effect first, because if they Droll you, it's dead on board. Also, this and street having the 2 abilities of, special summoning a Purrely monster and adding 3 quick play spells with different names back from the grave to your hand when an Xyz leaves the field due to an opponent's effect or battle is insane. Moving into spells, so we still have our 3 copies of Happy. This card is your win con. You use this to kill your opponent. It is 2 strong, so always leaving that at 3. And then we go to the 2 ofs. Spoiler alert, you now know what is at 2. We have 2 copies of Sleepy, 2 copies of Delicious. If I could have 3, I would, but unfortunately, Konami doesn't love us enough. And then we've cut down Pretty Memory to 2. My thought process when making this decision was, this deck prefers to grind out the game, control the game state, control your opponent's resources, and it doesn't act swiftly in regards to taking a win. So when Pretty Memory is giving away 1,000 life points for free, it's the worst of all the spells. It's good in the sense that it doesn't require a target to activate. You can just activate it in the draw phase, unlike Happy or Delicious that need targets. But it is what it is when I'm making decisions in regards to the game state. Giving away a resource to your opponent, no matter what that resource is not the best play, in my opinion. And this is why I've made the decision to cut down the Pretty Memory to 2 and keeping Yeep at 1. This rounds out the Purrely engine at 20 cards, right? So that leaves us 20 slots for non-engine. Speaking of non-engine, we're going to talk about the Fiendsmith engine now. We have 3 copies of Lurry, because Purrely quick play spells discard to summon from deck. And when this card is discarded, it summons from the grave. It's like the what's it called? Dark World stuff. Discard this card, get a free draw. This is discard a Lurry, get full Fiendsmith combo. So, we're going to max out on that. We then have our 2 copies of Engraver. I like 2 because you need to have 1 in deck to activate the effect to summon it. When I'm speaking of the card to summon, I'm talking about Lacrima. So if you draw these 2, you can still, pitch this, add the spell. You've got access to everything. The only change I would potentially make, depending on, again, room in the deck, is increasing this to 2 tracked. I did try the common spell, the Sanct, just wasn't for me. I wasn't a fan. So yeah, 7 card engine. We've got 3 Lurry, 2 Engraver, 1 Lacrima, and the 1 tracked. So that's the small Fiendsmith engine. Non-engine. We have probably the most used card in every deck at the moment, being Droll and Lockbird. This just stops your opponent from playing the game. Super impactful, and this is the decision as well around my deck building, is I don't want to play into this card. So, being able to play around it and then also maining it is super important. We then have Maxi at home, Fua. Always having this in the main is super smart, especially when you're not winning the die roll. Sideboarding Purrely. If you had the space, if we weren't running the Fiendsmith engine, I'd main deck Purrely, but for now we just have the Fua. Then a few 2-ofs, just to give us more ability to draw into them. So the game plan obviously is to make a noir and benefit from optimistically 4 draws. So 2-ofs increase the chance of seeing different names. If you have 3-ofs, especially of nibs or drolls where you can activate once per turn, or Ashe, it's sort of, you don't want to be drawing double of them and then having a brick in hand. So we have 2 Nibiru, 2 Veiler, and then 2 Imperm. So again, the thought process here is to draw into these. Obviously the Imperm, we don't really want to be drawing into it because you can't activate it from hand. But just more variety is probably the best thing I can say. Rounding out the deck with a Call By and a Triple Tactics Talent. So that's the main deck. 40 cards clean, I wouldn't change a thing. Keeping it close to 40 just for the sake of consistency. Extra deck. We have Fiendsmith, Requiem, and Anima as our 2 level 1s. This, I tried to play without it and realised how much I miss it, just because people don't play around it anymore and you get free stuff and it's great. Also, it's a great debate at an interaction because they have to stop it, so that's what it is. We then have our 1 copy of Sequence for Fiendsmith stuff, and our SP Little Knight. That rounds out all the Link Monsters. So 4 Link Monsters, 2 level 1s, 2 level 2s. We then have our small cats. So we have 1 Noir, 1 Happiness, 1 Beauty, and 1 Plump. In a perfect world, I would preference having 2 Plump, but we have to make room for other things. Moving forward, when you see the rest of the list, I would probably cut the Happiness for a 2nd Plump for the grind game, but I'll talk more around that when we get to Happiness, which is soon. We have Caesar for Fiendsmith stuff. We all know what he does. And then, yeah, referencing the Happiness. So this is my glass cannon. It's not optimal, but I like it, especially when you have the capacity to bait out your opponent's interactions. When you have the game knowledge, the card knowledge, and the resources, you can do that. And when in a pinch, when you need to either do massive damage or you need to take the game, this card can do it. It hits huge, but it is a glass cannon. If your opponent has an ability to interact with it, do not make this card. It would be almost better to make a smaller cat with a lot of materials, with the delicious underneath, swing, break down their board, take away their resources, and then overlay a Noir to control the game state moving forward. If you have a concern that they can get rid of this or interact with it in any way, don't do it. But I still like to keep it there because in a pinch, you can still make it, as I said, use it, burn through their resources and kill them that way. We then talk about 2 Noir. This is our boss monster. This is our towers. We have him. We can use a trap to make him once, and then we hard make him again with Plump. So that's the sort of thought process. And, moving forward, optimally, I would maybe cut this, add a 2nd Plump, and then when you win the die roll or whatever, you make your first Noir with the trap, you get your draws, you survive that turn, and then obviously he's not going to hang around because of the trap, but then you can hard make another one with a Plump, get a whole bunch of resources under it with that effect of Plump where you can absorb 2, and then control the game, and then you're not going to lose that 2nd Noir unless obviously your opponent baits it and deals with it or whatever they need to do. So that's the Purrely cats. We then have our Zeus. Obviously, because when we make this with the trap and we do what we need to do, the turn goes back to us. We end our turn. If this is still on the field, it goes back to the extra deck. All right, so that's not ideal, especially if it's still got 3, 4, 5 materials under it. Swing, make a Zeus, control the game from there. You've still got a big Zeus, big resources there. So that's why we have Zeus here. Last few cards, we have Fiendsmith stuff. So we have our Princess and our Desiree. So Princess is there for when we want to make our old mate Caesar. Simply for that. You can also put her on the field and leave her there and draw some cards in your opponent's turn when they start hand trapping or doing whatever they want to do. She has a pretty cool effect. But otherwise, she's literally just here to make a Caesar, as well as the 2 engravers. You can use those. And Desiree, we all know what Desiree does. Desiree's an ass, but we use him because he's cool. We have a token. That's the extra deck. Side deck. Shout out to my fam. We have 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring in the side. Because it's not as good to main anymore, it's not as impactful, so we just leave it here. I think it's pretty good still. Good for that mini game, which is going to be Purrely, Fibaloose, and Ash Blossom. So that's those guys. This next one is Dogwood for life points. We want to grind out the game. We want to control the game. So doing that, life points are a resource. We want to gain those life points to be in a an empowering position. So when the timer runs out, we can win that game. But ideally, it's yeah. We all know what this card does. We then have Lancia. We all know what this does. It deals with one certain deck, and even then it doesn't really do a great job anymore because they've got resources to play around it. But it still has to be here, unfortunately. We then have Duster and Lightning Storms for those stun decks or decks that, like to play into them. I think these are staples in everyone's side deck at the moment, but, it is what it is. But that's the Purrely deck, guys. Let me know in the comments below what you think. Like, comment, and subscribe, and we'll see you all in the next one. Peace.